Thinking about answering this question, very often what I see people do is they'll just talk about themselves and they'll be very generic and very vague and say, well, it's a great opportunity for me. This would be fantastic to work with a really talented team and gain exposure to great clients, get good experience. But really what's happening is when a person delivers that answer, though it's true, is very self-involved. It's very much about what I can get from you rather than me demonstrating to you that I really understand what I'm going to do. Something that I always suggest that you do is make sure that you download or print a copy of the job description. It's going to give you all the information that you need about the job. Now, if the job description is vague, which many of them are, particularly for larger companies, when they tend to be a little bit salesy and not really explain about what you're doing, then just make sure that you look up the title of the job itself into Google and find somewhere that has a good job description, maybe from a rival company or something in a different industry. Because what you're going to do first of all is explain to the interviewer what you're going to do in this job. So explain, what would you do as a financial analyst? What would you do working in operations? What would you do working in sales and trading or mergers and acquisitions? And just reel off 4, 5 or 6 different things that you'd be expected to do, the duties that you would have. After this, which is the second part of the answer, you can really talk about yourself a little bit more. So choose 2 or 3 skills that you feel are really important for this job. Is it teamwork, leadership, financial analysis skills, Excel, macroeconomics? Whatever it may be, choose that skill and just give a 1-sentence response in terms of why you're good at this skill. I've got great financial analysis skills, which I know are really important for this role. I've got great financial analysis skills in terms of Excel, because for the past 3 years, I've been a member of our university's asset management society, where I carried out a DCF analysis for over 40 different companies. Now, as you can see, this is a short sentence. It's clear and compelling in terms of me providing evidence for that skill. Something that I don't suggest that you do is just reel off a long list of skills, which I see people do, because it's not really believable. You know, if somebody says that they're really good at doing everything, that you're like, I don't think that you are. So choose 2 or 3 things that you think is important and then zero in on those skills with proof. Having a really good personal introduction is definitely somewhere you want to start. If you've never done an interview, if you're struggling with interviews, if you just want to think, what's something that I can do right now to start getting better at it, you can download our personal introduction worksheet, which is also in the link down in the description below. It's completely free, and you can write out the 6 steps, which are: who are you and what are you doing now? What have you done in the past? What do you want to do in the future? Work experience, extracurricular skills, extracurricular activities, and finally skills and interest, and then end with a bang. This is something that you can do your script, refine your script, shorten it down to bullet points, and then practice on a daily basis. Once you've practiced that 7 to 10 times, you'll really be able to nail that personal introduction, deliver a really crisp sales pitch about yourself and who you really are. And the delivery of this is really important and definitely is going to put you into good stead when you have a final interview or a face-to-face interview. And the same goes for professionals who actually I find struggle with this even more, because they're trying to condense a lot of years of experience into just sort of, 2 minutes, which can be quite challenging. So therefore requires you to write, rewrite, edit, refine, practice and practice again. So this is a competency-based question. So we're going to be looking to answer this using the STAR format, which is situation, task, action, result. Now, when you're working through this, bearing in mind that the majority of your answer should be based around the action that you took. This is really the thing that's going to demonstrate the competence or the skill. So you're looking for about 70% of your answer to be based in the action. And when you're recounting the situation that you're in and the task that you had to do, you're going to want 4 or 5 different points which really emphasize that you understand good teamwork. So that could be good communication, meeting up, discussing your project, making sure your part of the work is done, helping others with the things that they had to do, helping with resolving issues or overcoming hurdles that you might come across. For example, somebody not able to do their work, somebody having a technical issue, or somebody just having a change of circumstances, which means they can't contribute as much as they would have liked to. What this means is when you put your answer together, you give a really good demonstration of being able to do this skill in real life. Competency questions are really common for all first round interviews, I would say, and you want to make sure that you have your star stories together. If you don't know what star stories are, then make sure you check out our past interview pack where we show you how to organize all of these in a really easy and simple format, so you can just have a couple of stories ready that are good to go for whatever interview you've got coming up. Very often people get a little bit caught up about which strength should they choose, but ultimately if it's outlined in the job description, it doesn't really matter. Very often job descriptions are written in order of preference. So if you think the things that are higher up on the bullet points are going to be the skills that they're really looking for. The one thing that you just really want to make sure that you demonstrate is that you give very clear proof in terms of something that is quantifiable and provable. For example, if I said I'm really good at sales, this is my opinion. But if I said because I've sold £500,000 worth of real estate in the last 3 months, then maybe this becomes more impressive if we're talking about garages, for example. Probably not so impressive if we're talking about houses. But that is a quantifiable result or proof rather than just my opinion. This is very much the same as teamwork. So the situation, where were you? The task, what is it that you had to do in a zoomed out version? But give the context. Very often when people are giving star answers, they'll say, there was a time when I was at university and I was doing a project with some people and then this thing happened. I'm like, what are you talking about? Give me some context. Because if you don't give me context, I just feel a little bit confused and disinterested, and then I start thinking about lunch. Now you might turn and go, but Mike, you said a person doesn't watch it, but they may watch it, and also you're going to find it much easier telling a story if there are related specifics. For example, the date, the names of the people, the kind of 10-second summary of what the project was, and talking about collaboration, speaking, listening, communicating, resolving conflict, moving towards a common goal. I like this question because it's kind of a strength question, right? It's like, what do you think success is? And you're like, oh my God, I don't know. So how do you work with a deadline coming up? So a good way to answer this is basically imagine it's still a competency question, but you give a direct answer at the start of it. So how do you work with a deadline coming up? Well, I tend to be quite focused. Really importantly, in my academic life, I've always been good at prioritizing work by deadline and making sure that I manage my schedule effectively to get that work done. So when I have a deadline in front of me, I am focused, I blot out anything else which is not related to that, and I make sure that I get the job done. A time when I did this was, and then it turns into a star answer. Where I see a lot of people go wrong is they spend 2 minutes talking about the meaning of deadlines, right? You don't need to do that. You just need to very quickly give a hot take about how you deal with deadlines, and then give me an example to demonstrate the fact that you can deal with deadlines. And when we're talking about a setback or a challenge, one thing that I often say to people is it's got to be something that's significant. It's not like I went to the shop and there was no milk and I didn't know what to do and had a meltdown. So it could be maybe something that's like I didn't get the university that I chose. I failed an exam. I was late getting something in. I had to put in some extra hours because I was doing evening and weekend work while I was at university. So one thing that I think is really helpful for trying to answer this question is trying to teach somebody how to do that thing. Now, I often say to people, there's a difference between saying what you did and teaching somebody how to do something. So if you had this big setback or challenge and you're laying it out in the star format, so you talk about, when was it, where were you, what were you doing, what was the setback, and then really talking about the steps that you took to overcome that challenge. And by doing that, you'll find it really easy, number one, to answer this question effectively, give it some reasonable content, to tell a decent story, and to give specifics and details. A lot of the responses around the way that the interview process went, mention that there are a lot of behavioural interview questions. Now, behavioural interview questions are basically trying to pick out key skills that are required for the role. So in this case, it's going to be teamwork. To answer this, you're going to want to use something which is called STAR, Situation, Task, Action, Result. Now, if you want to find a really simple way to hack this technique, you can check out our interview success secrets course. But the basics is that you want to be very clear when this happened, the situation, what exactly you were doing in short, the task. The majority of your answer is based around the action, I'd say at least 70%, and then the last 5% just to give a tangible result. So when you're talking about the skills for teamwork, which you're going to be mentioning in the action part, so it would be speaking to your teammates, listening to them, making sure you understand the matter at hand, that you're available for other people, that you're helpful. The list really goes on, and you can pick 4 or 5 things which demonstrate you have a clear understanding of teamwork. Conflict is basically a disagreement. It doesn't have to be a full-on stand-up row, but also it could be something as simple as you're in a group doing a project for university and you want to choose a different topic to your teammate. Now, something that's really important in terms of resolving conflict is, number one, listening to the other person, understanding what the problem is, taking the time to speak to them, probably one-on-one rather than a group scenario, seeing if you can find some sort of compromise and moving forward so that you can basically get the work done. The most important thing is not about being right. The most important thing is about getting a result. So when you have a conflict with somebody, it's really seeing how you can smooth things over and maybe understand something deeper which is going on. Could be that person is having a difficulty in their home life. And most of the time, if I'm honest with you, conflicts tend to be just down to bad communication. Why do you want to do this job? Or what does a day in the life of this role look like? So these 2 questions are really very similar and they can be broken down into 2 parts. The first and the second part can both be learned from the job description. Something that I highly recommend that you do when you're preparing for an interview for any company is to scrutinize the job description. This is as long as the job description is actually helpful, i.e. it tells you about key responsibilities, the things that you will be doing on a daily basis, and also the skills and experiences that you need to be able to do this job well. Now, it could be when you're looking at this for KPMG that this isn't readily apparent. Maybe the job description doesn't provide a lot of information or is a bit too salesy, in which case what I suggest that you do is take the title of the job or a similar title if it's very specific to KPMG, pop that into Google and try and find other job descriptions where it's a little bit more descriptive about what you're going to be doing. Now, what are the 2 parts of answering that question? Well, part number 1 is really just about explaining what you're going to be doing in the job. This is very important if you're delivering a one-way video interview, because what happens in a higher view style interview or whatever the system or software it is that they're using is that your answers will be transcribed and the transcription will then be passed to look for particular keywords or phrases which show that you're a good match for the job. So they're actually using the job description that they have provided you as a marking scheme for your answer. Now, ideally, I'd say you want to spend about half your time talking about basically what is the job and what you'll be doing. The second half of your answer, you're going to want to take the time to pick out 2, 3, maybe even 4 key skills or experiences, say that you have them and provide the proof. And this must be a specific and measurable fact. For example, if I was just to say, I'm really good at sales, the question that's probably going through your mind is, well, according to what? If I said to you, I'm good at sales because I spent 3 months as a double glazing telesales person, making 12 appointments a week and doing 600 cold calls a week based upon that. Now, all of a sudden we have proof, evidence that shows that we are good at the thing that we say we're good at, rather than otherwise it's really just our opinion. Now, this is a more generalized way of looking at 2 different questions which we came across, which is tell me about a recent M&A deal And also tell me about a technology that you believe will be helpful for the audit industry. So really, looking at these two things, we can look at commercial and business awareness and also technology and recent developments. Now, one thing that I highly recommend that you do, if you're not currently applying for jobs, but you're just watching this video because you're interested in doing this job or working at this company, is sign up for weekly bulletins from an industry news portal, whether that be something like Accountancy Age or the ICAEW website or a regulatory body, whatever country that you're working in. If you look up to see who is the regulatory body who's going to be delivering your professional qualification, as well as an industry news website that is churning out news as an aggregation service for the industry that you want to work in, whether that be more generalistically professional services or audit, tax, advisory or deals, then you should be up to date with what's going on within the industry. Technology questions are always a really good way to prepare, and in fact, if you read through KPMG's white papers, if you go and look at their technology consulting arm, or you look at their annual report, you'll be able to easily find out about new technology that they use, because shock horror, they're going to tell you all about it because they want to really bang on about the great technology that they're using, because that's a great way for them to attract customers. Now, I say weekly updates because you don't need to be fully up to date on a second-by-second basis or reading the Financial Times every day to really be able to answer this question comprehensively. What you do want to do is select a subject that you feel happy talking about and potentially could answer a question on, i.e. you could easily explain it to your mum or dad and then answer the questions that they may have. This is a really good way to frame this to make it easy for you to pick something out. Now really, this is a question about problem solving. Give me a time when you solved a problem, give me a time when you thought of a new and innovative way to do something. These are all the same types of problem. So you're going to use your situation, task, action, result. When thinking about an analytical approach, a problem or a challenge, think about something that was difficult for you to do. It wasn't just something you fixed straight away, but maybe you had to go back and forth a little bit. Maybe you had to say, look, I'll get back to you and go away and do your research. Think about something with the same level or similar level of difficulty to doing a university dissertation. A lot of times when I listen or read example scripts of people who've answered this question, I tend to find the challenges are not really significant enough. So we really want to make sure that we can communicate that we have dealt with this in an analytical way, because we had to get different sources of information. We had to, whether that be, people, places, things, books, etc., in order to enable us to solve this problem effectively. And finally, what was the result that you needed to achieve? This is an absolute doozy of a question and is one that many people struggle with. A good way to think about weaknesses are just lessons that you have learned. Things that you have done wrong and then been shown that they are wrong or reflected that this is not good and then learnt from them. A really common one that I hear from graduates is about time management or missing the mark, whether that be handing in something late, failing a module, failing, a piece of coursework. But this is a really excellent learning opportunity. And a lot of people will kind of, sort of steer away. They go, oh my God, I can't possibly reveal that I failed at something. I'm like, are you serious? Are you like the boy in the bubble who never went outside? Everybody fails at stuff, right? And if you're that guy who says, I don't have a weakness, get out of here. Seriously, just get out. So when talking about your biggest weakness, talk directly about what it is. And my advice to you is, as long as it's not compromising of the ethics and character that is required to do this job, like extreme stabbiness, excessive drinkiness, something like this. Just be reasonable. So you might say, one of my biggest weaknesses have been disorganized. There was a time in my second year of university when I had 3 deadlines for 3 different modules. And just before one of the papers was due, I was actually working on something completely different. And a friend of mine gave me a call and asked me if that paper was ready. And I said, what paper? And he said, the paper that's due in tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't done that at all. I went to the professor and explained that situation, and I felt felt awful because I felt like I'd really let the professor down. And he was pretty cool about it and he gave me an extension, but I learned from that experience that I made sure that I had a physical diary, that I would write out all my deadlines, that I would take the time each week to assess how many chunks I would need to give to each piece of work, and also be generous in that, and making sure that before I went out with my friends or went to society events, I had got that work done first. Now you'll notice a mistake happened, but this is fairly reasonable. And what's most important is that you have demonstrated the lesson that you have learned. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do me a favor, like this video, drop me a comment down below with a thumbs up, or just let me know what brought you here to watch this video today. Bye.